This is the GMS Magazine podcast. This is the RPG interview room, the room in which I am lucky enough to get together with some of the best people in the world of role playing games and ask them a ton of questions about their projects. This is a podcast all about board games, role playing games, and the people who make them. And I am Paco Garcia, your host. This interview is with Tim and Evangelos, who are actually running a crowdfunding campaign for Ultramonde Editions, a French company, rather than for a product of their own. But Night is such a beautiful looking game that I just had to talk to them about it because two reasons. A, the game feels and sounds absolutely fantastic. And secondly, we don't see enough gems coming out of France, and that should change because believe me, there are some absolutely outstanding games being published in France, and the language barrier means that we are missing out on so many things. And I don't want that to happen. So I want this project to succeed and do amazingly well. It's already doing incredibly well at the time of recording this podcast, which is the 3rd of May, but it should do a lot better in the week that it has got left. So, without further ado, I really hope you enjoy the interview, and I will talk to you very soon. Take care. Tim, Evangelos, welcome to the show. This is really fun because it has been a very long time coming. I don't know how many emails have we had to, cross to get to this point because my life is such a mess at the moment. I haven't been able to get to here. It's been, have we been talking about this for a month?
Yeah, I think it's about. I think we reached out a little bit before we launched the campaign, and exchanged a few messages or emails, and yeah, it's uh, organizing international calls can be sometimes difficult, but we're super happy that we managed to do it.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, believe me, it is an absolute pleasure, and I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Night and Avalon RPG, which is it looks so cool. It is looking so good, which cements what I keep saying to an awful lot of people that the French market is completely unexplored and it has perhaps the most beautiful RPGs out there. It's incredible the wealth that there is in France. Tell me a little bit about how did you get across this game and to be promoting this campaign and promoting this crowdfunding for Entre Monde Dijon.
Yeah, so our CEO Cedric, he's Belgian, so he speaks French, and I'm not sure whether it was him that reached out to Entremond or whether they contacted him, but either way, they started talking. Cedric obviously fell in love with the project because it looks amazing, as you just said, and yeah, it kind of like came from the top. Basically, he said like, guys, this project looks really cool. I think you'd really dig it. And obviously we do. And that was, yeah, it's quite a while ago. I think that may have been like over a year ago that we first started talking with those guys. There was some like back and forth and like ironing things out, and then yeah, a little under 3 weeks ago, we eventually just launched the project.
And I think we sorry,
no,
sorry for interrupting. But I think we even have like one of the original copies of the original first edition of the book in the office. So like Cedric was a fan of the game even before we started working on that. So it's been a long time coming, I would say.
Okay. Now we need to stress that you two are not really the authors of the game. So exactly what are you guys doing in this campaign?
So yeah, we haven't designed the game or wrote any lore or art for that. Not in this one. We have been mostly helping the Antremont team to take the game and the concept and try to make it international. So we help them with all the logistics that included like setting up the campaign, helping them create all the assets, like taking the illustrations that they had and making them in graphics for the page. We have helped with translating the text that they have into something that makes more sense for the campaign itself. We've been interacting with people, so we are answering comments on the campaign, posting updates, asking people what they want to see, and giving them some little bit of reveals while the campaign is going, and also talking to people about it here and there, online and offline.
And it's obviously going very well, but why did you decide to actually support this project? Beside the fact that it looks absolutely gorgeous, because I mean, I can imagine that A, you must be getting some lot of requests to do this kind of thing, and B, you don't want to put your own credibility behind a project that may not be working. So, what is it that made you think, okay, yeah, this is worth supporting. Let's go for it.
So there are a few things. As you mentioned, we do helping people with their crowdfunding campaigns is one of the things that we do. But because that's very time consuming, we can't help everybody that asks for it, or we can't help it in the capacity that we do for Night and Avalon RPG. So there is a combination of our belief in the game and the campaign that we can create for it. So when they reached out, we had a very good look on the game, on the quick start guide that they had, and the work in progress translation that they had at the point. And also we talked a little bit about how, all the communication that we can have from them, because we have been taking care of most things, but because we're not the authors ourselves, we need to get back to them on a daily basis about some questions that they may have, and we need to make sure that they will be available to answer those questions for us in the community. So communication was also a major part of this. And yeah, they gave us a lot of free reign on what to do in terms of community management. We decided to go for Backer Kit instead of Kickstarter or GameFound, for example, and we are deciding what the updates and the reveals could be, alongside with what they want to reveal during the campaign and what to keep secret, because the game is a lot about secrets and spoilers that we cannot talk about. So we have to tread carefully for that as well.
Okay, so
Not sure if I'm missing anything there, Tim. Anything you want to add?
No. I think that's a pretty great summary. And yeah, as I mentioned before, the game looks amazing. I think we're very much sold on the artwork and their kind of dedication to making a really excellent looking product as well, in terms of their graphic design and layouts for the actual books as well. They look great from the sample that we've got in the office, and you can even see on the quick start guide as well that is available on the campaign page at the moment. Even in that, they've gone above and beyond to make it look amazing.
What can you tell me about the game? What is Night all about?
I will tackle this. Evangelos seems to be having a little little coughing attack there.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
sorry, mate. So Night is basically an epic horror / sci-fi game set in a not too distant but very bleak future. So the overall, the kind of the summary of the history is there was a scientist from South Africa who essentially discovers the secret to immortality through tech, as in nanobots who can kind of stop the aging process and eliminate disease and that kind of thing. He thought, oh my god, I've unleashed something really that could be extremely controversial, completely change the course of humanity's history. And so he decides to destroy all of his research, but of course it leaks, right, as this huge tech kind of tends to do in these kind of stories. And from there are a bunch of a kind of geopolitics kind of ensues. There are factions that kind of form, and they kind of go head to head, and eventually there's this force called the anathema, which appears in the world, which is it kind of like it manifests in a lot of ways. So it could be like a very like kind of like dark area over like a specific continent, or like as pitch black as like the middle of the night, extremely cold, inhospitable. It can manifest in like another continent as like machines that are coming to life. You can get involved in the game to learn how that might work. It sounds quite outlandish. And then like in other regions, for example, there's humans who just become like extremely just kind of like barbaric and just go on like rampages and stuff like that. So really quite a dire situation for humanity to find themselves in. Oh, and there's also like loads of monsters in addition to everything I've just said, in case you needed another challenge on top of that. So that's kind of where the knights come in, really. So this guy turns up in like really kind of epic meta armor and just kind of pushes back the darkness that is like kind of settled over Dublin in Ireland. And so from there, he kind of establishes the knight institution, I suppose. And then
the Avalon.
Yes, yeah, that's it. And so the knights of Avalon are basically folks who have displayed like quite a high degree of like heroism, and so are chosen to kind of be equipped with like similar meta armors as to what Arthur himself was wearing initially, and they have, of course, all kinds of like epic, outlandish powers and abilities. And so that's where players will find themselves as part of this institution, tasked with being humanity's last hope. So yeah, no pressure to anybody that picks up the game and gets stuck into it with their group, but it's all resting on their shoulders.
Okay. I have a very difficult question to ask, but
Okay.
I am very picky with this sort of thing. Is it really a epic horror sci-fi, or is it an epic horror sci-fantasy?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so it's it depends on how exactly you categorize it. So it's not a post-apocalyptic game because the world hasn't ended. We're not like after the destruction of the world or anything. It's an apocalyptic game. The world is ending right now, and we need to save it. Through feats of heroism, but also through works of art, because art is also a very important thing in the game that I like, because it physically pulls the darkness outside with light. So there is a very strong symbolism of the fight between light and darkness there. So it's there are strong fantasy connotations, but not like more in the sense of the Arthurian legend rather than anything more modern. So there are a lot of Arthurian inspirations, both in the names of the characters, but also in the quests that they have. They go in some sort of Holy Grail quest throughout the game, and the players will be in charge of something like that as well, because they try to retrieve forgotten artifacts, let's say, in order to not spoil things, that can potentially save the world and reveal why anathema exists. But it's also the investigation plays a huge role in the game as well. So it's not like we're just combating and fighting monsters. So it's not like your typical dungeon crawl. So that's why I'm not sure fantasy really applies there.
Okay. I'm interested in what you said about the art being a very important part of the game itself because of how it drives darkness away. So tell me a little bit more about that aspect of the game.
Yeah, so anathema manifests itself through physical darkness. So literally the world is dark, and humanity also loses hope, and that also manifests itself in what in game characters called despair, which is like a physical sickness caused by the darkness and all of the horrible things around you that can make oneself lose hope.
Mhm.
But art and works of art help combat that in the way that people that are still connected with something that's pure and creative and imaginative uh, tend to hold on that hope a little bit longer and fight off the darkness. And also, humanity has gathered itself in arcs, which are huge cities that are controlled by some people called immortals, that are essentially billionaires that have the secret of immortality that they mentioned before.
Mm.
And they have convinced people to gather in these huge cities that they, of course, control uh, because they provide them with a lot of light, physical light, that physically, sorry that I'm using that word that
That's
much,
all right.
uh, uh, um, pulls darkness away, but they also gather artifacts, or they send knights to gather the artifacts and the works of art that can give people hope and also keep the darkness away in that sense as well. Um, and of course, the immortal's role in a story is very controversial as well in game, because they are kind of saving humanity. At least that's what they say. But they are also taking advantage of the situation that they are controlling, essentially what's happening in the majority of the safe havens of the world. So it's a little bit of double-edged sword.
Mhm. When you say that light physically, how does that translate? I mean, that doesn't mean that is a kind of a light that you can touch, or it is simply that the mere presence of light can get rid of the darkness, or is it a tangible thing?
It is tangible in the sense that in the arcs the arcs are the major cities that I talked about. So they have built some sort of domes above that they light with huge projectors, and that kind of combats the darkness. Um, but when anathema, let's say, attacks and darkens a place, physical light can uh, battle that a little bit. I- Does that make sense?
Roughly, yeah. I mean, I think
Okay.
conceptualizing that, I presume you just have to try it and experience it around the table to gather a properly visual reference as to how you're going to be interacting with it. But it does feel like a very, very alien kind of concept. You know, it's not like recently I was playing a video game. I
Mhm.
don't know if you guys have seen it, called A Plague's Tale.
No, I don't think I have.
There are two games, Innocence and then Requiem, and they're absolutely beautiful, beautiful, beautiful game. Funnily enough, French. And in this game, there are a number of rats, you know, that are controlled by an illness called the macula, which is a mystical illness. And the rats do go away with light. So if you have a torch,
Mm.
then they cannot reach you because light will physically hurt them. So
Right.
that's what I was wondering if it was something like if you have a torch, you can keep away this anathema, or if it's something more, you know, they can slam you in the face and give you a big, big slap.
I think it's more like an aura, more psychological. That the more darkness that persists, the easier it will be for the other monsters to get into that region,
Mhm.
and also it's sort of a corruptive aura. All technology doesn't seem to work that well in areas that are pitch black. Um, or even in the arcs, the metropolis that people reside at the outskirts of the town, it seems that things are not functioning as well as in the downtown
Mhm.
because there is more darkness there. The light isn't that strong because everything is focused a little bit from the middle, facing outwards in a way. Um,
That
so
sense
yeah.
of impending doom if somebody unplugs the reactor, it is kind of pretty scary, isn't it? I mean, the fact that the whole system could collapse if whatever it is fueling the light goes off. It's like, oh, okay, this is fragile.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like the light itself is the only thing that holds things away, but it's a factor.
Okay. Mechanically, though, how does the game play? What system does it use?
I think you want to tackle that.
Yeah. So it has like its own kind of like combo system, I suppose. So this kind of uses a couple of characteristics. So that's one that is chosen by the GM. And but when I say characteristics, like each player character has 15 characteristics with varying stats, of course, that they kind of modify during character creation. And so in any kind of like given scenario, a GM can say one of these is going to be like dexterity, for example, or like the ability to run or something like that. So that's kind of chosen by the GM, and the player will then add to that as well, saying like the stats from this characteristic are appropriate here because XYZ creative reasoning, and it's kind of like it's their opportunity to kind of convince the GM that it's appropriate and what would be used in that scenario. And by combining the kind of like total of those two stats, that kind of gives a like I guess a score, for lack of a better term. The official term escapes me at the moment, so apologies for that. And so you would then roll a number of d6s, which equal to the score that I just mentioned a moment ago, and even numbers on those d6 results would be successes. And as typical in RPGs, you compare like the success roll to like the actual level of challenge in any given scenario. That is effectively how the combo system works. So it's like a bit of a negotiation, really, and players are encouraged to kind of embellish and make their descriptions like very cinematic and kind of just set the scene and get imaginations kind of like firing around the table, really.
I like that. It sounds very much like the player can think about anything they want to do in a way or another and make it flourish and make it like really epic, I suppose, very cinematic. But it doesn't matter how good you are, because even though you were mentioning how even numbers are successes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get more even numbers than the opposing. Also, your very ornate floriture can end up in you facing the floor face first.
Yeah, you can make it sound as good as you want, but you might just like get your butt handed to you in the end, unfortunately. So
you can still like put yourself in a situation that if when let's say you find a monster from far away, for example, and the GM says, yeah, it noticed you, you need to attack it now. So you can decide, for example, that you're going to go with a ranged attack, so because it's far away, so that the GM has already given you that, but you're also going to play with your stealth skill, which is something you're good at and that you have like an equipment that's appropriate for the situation, so that you can say, okay, yeah, it noticed me, but it doesn't know where I am exactly. I'm hiding in the darkness behind the trees, so I will go all the way around and I will shoot it with my weapon. So I'm rolling stealth and range as you instructed. So the GM will give you like what's the difficulty of that, which is what is the number of even dice that you need to roll. But the amount of dice that you roll is the sum of the two actions that you took, which is stealth and ranged attack, for example. So you might need to have like 4 successes, but you're now rolling 9 dice instead of 7 that you would be rolling if you would go head first, for example, instead of stealth. So there is a little bit of agency from both player and the GM, and of course there is a lot of luck in the dice roll as well that determines the outcome and gives you a little bit more stressful cinematic experiences, let's say.
which is good. I mean, that's what makes the whole thing challenging and interesting, I suppose. What kind of characters can people create? Are there any humans and any other races or species? How does that work?
So there are humans. There are a few things that can change that. The main thing is we are all knights of the Avalon organization, but the Avalon organization itself is divided in several divisions. So it depends on which division you are going to be in, what task you're gonna take. Like, are you gonna be fighting monsters head first? Are you gonna be in intel trying to find out secrets? Are you going to be essentially a spy of potential enemies of the organization? Are you going to be someone that fixes armors or that heals the other players' armors in the fight? So the divisions play a strong role. And also the Meta-Armour that you're wearing itself has its own ability. And it's like it's inspired by D&D classes in a way. It's not exactly that, even though it has similar names. But you have, for example, the barbarian Meta-Armour, which makes you very, very tall and very muscular, and you can throw cars at enemies and stuff like that.
Okay.
Or you can have the Scion Meta-Armour, which you can go invisible, you can hide, you can eavesdrop to people. So it really affects that. But also your backstory is very important. So when you're building your character, you might be, you might even be one of the rejects, the people who have never been in an arc before, that they live outside in the wild, which of course influences a lot of the decisions you're going to take and your stance against the immortals, the organization, or the world outside, for example.
Why would players what's the call to the adventure? I mean, apart from the fact, yeah, the world is dying and you have to do so and so, but why would they be driven to fight against anathema rather than defending the cities, for instance? What's the call to the heroic adventure of the game?
I think it's more like the world had totally lost hope before the Knight organization came to be. Okay. So it's like the biggest honor or the biggest, I guess, celebrity a person can be is being a knight. So it's more, it's both like saving the world, and also the only way that the whole humanity can see the world being saved is through the knights and the armors, because there was absolutely no light in the horizon before Arthur came and saved Dublin and the Avalon organization was formed. So everybody is kind of looking at the knight organization for the salvation. At least in the western part of the world, because there is also in Asia a different organization that does something similar, the Nodaki in Japan, which of course there is some contests there as well. So I think there are a lot of different motives a player can have. It could be personal glory, it could be to save their loved ones, it could be to literally save the world. But because it's based a lot on the Arthurian legend, I think it's more like a pursuit of saving the world for the sake of it, really.
Tell me a bit about the production of the game in terms of the artwork. There's a question that I need to ask these days because it has to be asked. And has AI been used to generate any of the artwork in the book?
No, absolutely no.
Okay.
No, it's all human created art, and you can see on the campaign page if this episode goes out whilst the campaign is still live, there are all of the artists listed at the bottom of the back campaign page. So yeah, just to reassure folks who might be on the fence. As you said, you've got to ask these days, right? Because many folks are using it as a tool. So yeah, it's all human created art.
Good. No,
yeah. And the Antremont team was pretty adamant about
Yeah.
that. Like they never wanted to go any other way. They really like the artists they work with, and they are not very much in favor of AI artwork themselves, and neither are we, to be honest. So, yeah, it's all human made.
Good. No, and it's. I just feel that regardless of what people think about AI these days, but I think it needs to be said because the use of AI, regardless of all these ethical issues, it's hurting an awful lot of people in many levels. So I'm not going to be the one to condemn people for using it because I don't know the reasons for the circumstances, but I think it is fair that people know when work is using AI or not, so they can make an informed decision. You know, buying a book and finding that the artwork is not such, because I'm sorry to say, I don't think AI images is art. I just don't believe it is. It's
content, I guess.
Correct, but it's not art. For me, at least, it's just not art. I think people should know that from the beginning. So once, because of course these already is verging on the 60,000 euros at the time of recording this interview, and today is the 3rd of May, 2024. Which, by the way, since tomorrow it's going to be, this podcast is going to be released. Happy May the 4th, everyone.
Oh yeah.
What is the book going to look like? When people pay you for this and they receive their book, what are they going to be holding in their hands?
So this is like the core rulebook, and well, the other books that we have on the campaign are hardcover copies. So they'll be quite sturdy. They are the core rulebook is several hundred pages long.
A little bit more than 300.
Okay.
And I think it was the 2038 book, which kind of adds more kind of like world building and like story elements. That book, I think, as well as like a couple of hundred pages.
I think it's 120 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just have the numbers in front of me.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, so like significantly sized like objects, basically, that people can just kind of hold and enjoy and kind of like pore over of an evening after they get home from work, for example. But on the campaign as well, we've also got like PDF versions of the books available for folks who prefer reading on a device. And of course, like that's kind of helpful for folks who are traveling to their friend's house and like don't want to be lugging like very heavy, dense hardback books to game sessions. So yeah, that is what people can expect from the actual books. And then we've got some add-ons, some stretch goals on there as well. So these are again like physical products. So we've got like custom dice that people can buy add to their order. We've got tarot cards, which are helpful for character creation, and a selection of other like physical items as well.
How do those items add to the game experience?
So there are a few different things, and this has its own purpose. So, for example, the night dice set is just another set of 10d6 dice, but they are within the night art book. So these are like very supplementary, but other are more can be more useful for your game experience. So, for example, the Arsenal Dex has like all the weapons that are available in the game, so you can have them in front of you, like all the weapons that you have available, and you can use them as a reminder, as a reference, or when somebody breaks, you can tap it or anything like that to make sure that you are on top of things. There are some armor sheets that you have so that you can reference all the different armors. So when you meet somebody that you wearing something that you haven't encountered before, you can kind of understand what it does from references. The books themselves are mostly for the GM. So both the Night hardcover and the 2038 and the Bestiary include a lot more information about the world and the story. And there is also a GM screen available as well for the GM. Oh, and I should mention that in the pledge levels themselves, if you buy any physical product, you also get the digital version of that as well for free. So if you buy the all-in pledge with all the books, you also get PDFs of all the books as well, so that you can have them in whatever way it fits you.
I found interesting one thing, and interesting in a very good way, and it's the fact that you have more backers for the all-in pledge level than for the base book. And the difference is huge, because the base book, just the book alone, is 49 euros, whereas the all-in is nearly 200. And
Yeah.
yet, people are going for that like mad. You have like 50 or 60 backers more there than you have in the base book, which you would expect people to go for the cheaper thing and then add more things if later on. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that it's a lot of good value in the Arthur pledge. It's more discounted because, of course it is. You're getting more stuff, so we're trying to make it easier for people to get as much as they can in a decent price. We were actually expecting the third pledge to be more popular than the fourth one, but we're pleasantly surprised, of course. I guess it's a combination of it's an upgraded version of the original book, and some of the add-ons were out of print for a while. So this is the first chance that even people from France who had the original version can upgrade their pledge and get everything that they were missing, and make sure that they have everything that they would like to have in the future. Actually, I think that's the main reason.
Not about the reason at all, I have to say. And when is the delivery date? Ideally, because we know that anything can happen in the next few months, but when is the expected delivery date for this project?
The Antremont team plans to finish the translation and the proofreading shortly after the campaign, so that they know what stretch goals have been unlocked and make sure that everything has been accounted. So I would assume that would be like a month or two after it's over, until they get like the backer information and everything. Then they will start production, and they plan to deliver it. The delivery date is like within the year of the campaign end. But they're secretly planning to deliver earlier, I think.
I think it's wise to tell people 12 months and then deliver in 9 or 10, rather than saying, oh, we can do this in 6 months, and then getting delayed when China decides that they're not going to be shipping your books. Yes, thank you very much. So we're talking about that. Actually, is the production going to be held in Europe, or is it going to be a Chinese production? How is that going to be handled?
It's not finalized yet. The previous edition was made in Europe, in Lithuania. The current edition, I think they have codes from both there and from some Chinese factories, so it's not decided yet. So I think it depends about the final quantity of how many books they need to print and what makes sense, both financially, I guess, but also in terms of fast delivery and quality. I know that they have received samples from both places and they're happy with both. So it's more about the questions of how big the demand is to justify, printing it internationally, I guess.
Fair enough, indeed. I think that's very, very fair enough. And the last question I have is, what happens next? I mean, is Antimonda going to keep producing material for Night? How is the game going to be supported after this campaign finishes and is delivered?
I'm not sure what our involvement with that is going to be personally, but I know that they have plans to continue expanding the world. They have already created a novel in the world of Night. They have already created some additional material for the game itself. More information about the Nodaki organization in a supplement. They have created the codex as well. Which were not part of the campaign because it's already big enough. We don't need to have like 20 different products at once. So I think if the campaign goes well and the international audience loves Night as much as the French audience did, they are very well placed to continue supporting that in English as well.
That would be absolutely amazing. Team Evangelos, thank you very much for being with me today. It's been genuinely a pleasure seeing you both and chatting about. Now, this is really a very exciting project. I have to say, I love seeing French games coming out of France because they truly have some gems in there. So I hope that the 555 backers that I'm seeing right now, hopefully will shoot up to about 700 or 800 by the end of the campaign. I think that would be a really, really great result, and congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us as well.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been a pleasure having this chat.
Anytime. I hope we can do it again soon, and it will not be such a mess to get it organized. And I will be able to organize myself a lot better next time. Thank you very much indeed, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Don't worry about it at all. It was a pleasure as always.